Grab some meat or whatever you need. I'm Corey, and it's time to get into it. I really mean it this time. It's going to be a long one. We got Diablo news. So like I said, we have kind of a long video today because we're going to be looking at the entire Diablo 4 quarterly update that came out just a few hours ago. I just got done exercising, hopped on my computer to start looking up what I was going to look through, what I was going to read through, what I was going to do a video on today, and I saw that this has gone live. So, while I catch my breath, we're going to start reading through this. If you enjoy what I'm doing here, if you like these videos, if you want to show support to the channel, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, leave some comments in the section down below, feed the algorithm, help me grow. So Diablo 4 quarterly update, March 29th of 2022. Hello, and welcome to the first Diablo 4 quarterly update of 2022. We hope you enjoyed last quarter's update on systems, itemization, and visual effects. That blog and our previous updates are available if you missed out. And if you would rather look through this yourself, if you don't want to sit and listen to me talk about it, as always, the links to my subjects are going to be in the description below. You're more than welcome to do that. I'm struck by how much the game has evolved since our first blogs. It's difficult for these updates to showcase all the work our engineers, designers, artists, QA team, and producers have done. How do you show a bug that doesn't happen anymore? Or explain how the planning in a burn down chart resulted in a feature making it into the game instead of getting cut? While you can't see those things, you can see how systems like itemization and skill trees have evolved, incorporating your feedback and internal testing along the way. You can also see how much closer we're getting to our artistic and thematic targets of dark, low fantasy gothic horror. And keep in mind, the images you'll see today still represent a work in progress. Many artists need to work together to deliver Diablo 4 with top-tier visual quality we can be proud of, and the promise of an immersive world you can wander through and enjoy getting lost in. The seamless game you play is a composition of many layers of art and visualization, from lighting to environments to props and interactives. Today, we have artists from many of these layers here to talk about their craft and everything that goes into building the world of Sanctuary. We hope you enjoy this update and look forward to your thoughts and reactions. We have exciting things to share this year. That was a loud I believe. And we're grateful to have you with us on this journey. Thank you for playing the games we make. And without further ado, artists. Joe Shelley, game director of Diablo 4. So this is the first picture that they're showing us. It honestly looks like the first downstairs area that you get to in Diablo 3 after you go and you find Tyrael has fallen through the floor and you jump downstairs. But as I've said many times, it looks like they just went in, turned the saturation of the colors down, and turned the gamma ratio down so that it's very dark, very dull. You'll probably hear me say that a lot even after the game comes out. Chris Ryder, art director for environments of Diablo 4. The team has been hard at work, and we're excited to take you behind the scenes on how we've developed the environments of Diablo 4. You will hear from our Associate Art Director, Environments, Brian Fletcher, Associate Lighting Director, Ben Hutchings, Lead Exterior Environment Artist, Matt McDade, and Lead Props and Interactive Artist, Chaz Head. They will be sharing how they approach each of their distinct areas that ultimately come together to form the environment art of Diablo 4. While many of the locations we will be sharing are in various states of progress, this is an excellent opportunity to showcase the amazing work our teams are creating for the next installment of Diablo. The environments of Diablo 4 cover a lot of territory and visual real estate of the game. 5 distinct regions and hundreds of dungeons that you will experience. It is where all the monster slaying, loot gathering, and exploration happens. Of course, none of this would be possible without the collective efforts of our talented designers, world builders, engineers, environmental artists, lighting artists, and technical artists. I may have some errors while reading through this. I have not looked through this at all. This is my first read through and look. As you can see, standard Diablo waypoint. Looks like another dark, very, very low color, lots of brown, lots of very, very, very dark, low saturation art, which is honestly what we like to see from a Diablo game. The game should not be very colorful. It should not be highly saturated like it was in Diablo 3. But one thing that I need to make sure that the developers are aware of is that the look of the game is not solely what makes a Diablo game a Diablo game. The itemization, the gearing, the character building, the customization, the looting is what made Diablo 2 what so many players of Diablo 2 loved. It wasn't just how the game looked. Now, that being said, obviously the game looks amazing, even still to this day. In my opinion, the graphics still hold up. But we need to make sure that that's not the most important thing when it comes to Diablo. We approach creating the environments of Diablo 4 through a darker and more grounded interpretation than earlier installments. The aim is for believability, not realism. Believability comes through our use of materials and deliberate construction of architecture and artifacts you will come across as you play through dungeons and the open world. In addition, regional weather conditions, varied local biomes, and a sense of history set the foundation of how an object or place should look visually in a medieval world like Sanctuary. After all, Sanctuary is full of history, struggle, and conflict, giving us many opportunities to depict a diverse world full of compelling locations in a dark, gothic, medieval setting. Even the wealthiest areas in Sanctuary are challenging to exist in. Leaning into these characteristics add to the richness of the world. It gives us a springboard to elaborate on the space visually, giving it a sense of identity we can log onto and build around. The atmosphere is almost tangible in places, with weather and lighting play a more prominent visual role in Diablo 4. With weather and lighting playing a more prominent visual role, we'll go with that. When it rains, surfaces get wet, puddles form in ruts, and hoof prints. The ground feels muddy. The atmosphere is heavy and damp. If they can actually relate that through playing, that'll be really impressive. I will thoroughly be impressed if they can actually relay the feeling of a wet, damp, dark world when it is raining. Same thing as many different aspects of environmental effects and weather effects. Contrast that by making your way into a hazy, firelit tavern that instantly contrasts with the atmosphere outside, a rare place of refuge and warmth. We want to take you on a journey, hinting at a location's past or recent events. The satisfying part of our work is developing and jamming on a location unique visual story, pushing and pulling the art until it becomes an iconic backdrop for combat. Exploration finally screams Diablo. So it looks like this is, the hazy warmth of a tavern. Again, super, super dark, super brown, very dull, which is what we're looking for. Here it looks like, a town set in an arid location feels visibly parched, exactly. Dust blowing, the color palette plays into warm, oxidized hues to create an iconic region in the world of Sanctuary. It reminds me of Gloin, or I believe that's the Act 2 town in Diablo 2. isn't it? But yeah, it feels very Middle Eastern-y, deserty, and I like it. I really do like it. I think that visually, this game is going to be phenomenal. Gameplay, we don't know yet. We still have no idea how gameplay and animation or itemization is going to be. Let's hope for the best. Prepare for the Diablo 3. Diablo 4's art is built with modern techniques and utilizes physically based lighting. As we handcraft locations across the Eastern continent, we are mindful of our approach to support combat, navigation, and narrative intent, and stylistic direction. To accomplish this, we filter concepts, locations, and final implementation through the dual pillars of Old Masters and a Return to Darkness. Using these pillars have been instrumental in keeping us constant and aligned with the visual tone of Diablo 4. The Old Masters pillar gives us a lens to filter our art through, considering the techniques classical painters like Rembrandt used. Oh, excuse me. With the controlled use of detail, tonal range, and expert use of color palettes. The Return to Darkness pillar is a through line in everything from dungeons to lighting, and embodies the idea that Sanctuary is a dangerous and dark medieval Gothic world. It's like the third time they've said it already. Additionally, we play to the iconic Diablo game camera, choosing where to add or remove detail to help the readability of the gameplay space or accentuate visual interests as needed. It is a balancing act that results in a handcrafted look with a distinct visual style that expands on the lineage of Diablo. Says deep in a ruin lost to time, its treasures and mysteries are awaiting discovery. And I could comment on this again, but it would be the same thing that I've already said about every picture that they've shown us. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of frustrating that they keep showing us the art, the environment, the music, because it's all typically the same. A dark, gothic, medieval horror style game, which is honestly, it shouldn't be something that they need to shove in our faces. That should be a standard with a Diablo game. That's what Diablo games were. That's what the world of Sanctuary was up until Diablo 3. They even tried to hint at that in Diablo 3, but they made it way too colorful and fanciful. This last little subject says, it's exciting and inspiring to see the daily progress and hard work the environment art teams are creating. Let's jump into more specifics and hear from Brian, Ben, and Matt, and Chaz on 6 locations we feel illustrate our approach and the concepts we keep top of mind when building the environments of Diablo 4. First, the world of Sanctuary. And this is a quote from Matt McDade. I'm excited to talk about the open world of Diablo 4. We have 5 captivating zones to explore. Each region is fraught with dangers of their own kind, many routes and hidden corners to uncover. How you choose to make your way through this vast world is up to you. The art and design teams have constructed a contiguous, I want to say contiguous, although I don't think I've ever seen that word written out. Contiguous world where you can roam from coast to coast. Unless it's supposed to be continuous. I don't know. Or high up into the glacial ridges. For the environment art team, we want to ensure each handcrafted location is distinct and immersive. Looking through the Diablo 4 lens that Chris alluded to earlier, the environment arts, interactives, and lighting teams strive to hit the tone that supports the Return to Darkness pillar. Get rid of my phone real quick. Now, let's play this and see what it is. And this is the Skogsland Coast. A little bit of green there, that's impressive. Slight bit of color change with the looks like dead and dying grass. I like how they added, looks like moss. Is this? Looks like you can actually see the grass blowing, the coast, or water moving around. You could actually see moss on the roofs. At least it looked like moss on the roofs to those buildings. I like how the shadows change as he's climbing up the ladder. You can actually see the grass kind of blowing in the breeze, which I think is really cool. There's some blues. So there we go. We've got some greens and some blues. All right, it looks like that's it. Matt McDade. For the Skogsland Coast, the environment art team set out to tell the story of untamed wild shorelines and headlands. As you transition toward the shores from inland, the coastal biome is first evidenced by the longer, more directional grasses that react to the driving offshore winds. The beaches are bleak and littered with seaweed, kelp, and rotting carcasses. It honestly reminds me of Act 1 of Path of Exile. Rugged cliff tops ascend high, whilst promontories are carved by the continual pounding of waves below. Through the process of creating our biomes, the environment art team has set out to communicate that this coastline is rife with peril. For the main settlements along the coast, it is important to us that we feel woven deep into the fabric of the coastlines. Dwellings with deep-rooted foundations skirt the cliff tops in a futile attempt to withstand the harsh elements. These structures are comprised of whatever materials the locals could lay their hands on and are in various forms of disrepair. Stone walls, salvaged wood, and thatch for the roofs. A place of consolation for the brave fishermen who trawl these treacherous seas. Fishing plays a significant part in the day-to-day life of these wary locals. So we've latched on to the idea and placed emphasis on these villages being centered around fishing. By adding supporting elements like rudimentary docks and slipways, it really helps set the stage for the interactive team to come in and layer on their culture kit throughout the area. Next, we have some words from one Chaz Head. Many of the props here are dynamic. The ships swaying in the ocean waves, the fishmonger's nets hanging to dry in the marketplace. Our main purpose here is to breathe life into the awesome architecture and terrain work. Our props and culture kits help provide that tangible real-world scale that the Diablo world represents. The drowned culture kits here is all interactable or breakable. When we set up these props, we push ourselves in terms of destruction. We use a constraint system to hinge specific pieces together that allows us to orchestrate distinct, realistic, and variable types of destruction. We do our best to tell the story of what has happened here, the drowned dredging with them hordes from beneath the sea, littering their conquest with relics of long-lost cultures as they raid across the beaches of Sanctuary. Then we have some words from Ben Hutchings. As you explore Diablo 4's open world, you'll experience a lot of variation in the lighting and weather. Here in the Skogsland Coast, you can see the foggy, frigid atmosphere, cues from the highlands and the moors. Across the game, we're striving for a grounded, natural palette, allowing us to create visual space for gameplay that also achieves a gritty tone, suiting the world of Sanctuary. And this is going to be a visual representation, a video, looking at the Orby Monastery. And then we have some more words from Matt McDade. And they are showing some destruction here, as you would expect, and it looks like a monk-type character. Could be a sorceress, wielding a staff, shooting fireballs, obviously a source, my bad. And it's looking like the same thing. A lot of browns and tans, a lot of very dull grays. And no, I don't have the sound on. That's because there tends to be ads popping up when I'm trying to record videos. So I would prefer not to inundate you all with the annoying ads that I'm not aware of because I don't have my headphones on. They're sitting next to me. Got a little bit of red over here, as red as we've seen so far. That's something that I really did like. If you look, as he walks towards this wall over here, it kind of disappears a little bit, not completely, but just enough to where you can kind of see what's going on. The top portion of the wall kind of fades away so you can see what's going on without it, the wall entirely going away, which I do like. I do like when they have that type of dynamic fade away to allow you to see through different parts of the environment when you get close to it. The Orby Monastery is an isolated and secretive feature in the rural dry steppes. While the Zakroom's presence has diminished, the Orby Monastery carries evidence that places of worship for the Zakroom can still quietly function. Since the location here is desiccated plains of the dry steppes, we aim to push the notion of dusty grasslands with sparse vegetation. We've made the conscious decision to add dark rocks that complement the pale blonde and rusty grasses. Poplar and saxaul trees cling to the ground, which really help provide parallax movement on screen. This contributes to greater depth as elements in the foreground move quicker than those further back in the scene. To help provide extra visual interest in the region, the Environment Arts team created a salt flats biome. Being able to have blue alkaline lakes skirted with salt-encrusted tufas and vivid geothermal pools really help add pockets of vibrancy to the dry steppes and create compelling natural landmarks. That I do agree. I did like the different colorations that you saw there. Still very bland, still very palatable, as I would call it, because it's not an overly vibrant. It's really not, which doesn't take away from the darkness of the game. So I really do like that. It says, against the efforts of the Zakroom worshippers, and like many of the buildings in Sanctuary, the Orby Monastery is in a state of dilapidation. Dilapidation? It's dilapidated. It is a goal of ours to visually communicate that whilst this place is in the early stages of ruin, it was once a prominent base of learning for the Zakroom monks. Compared to the native architecture of the dry steppes, the Zakroom architecture is more distinct and refined. These structures are adorned with ornate details. Have they announced? I can't remember what classes they've announced for the game, but I'm hoping that the monks do make a return. I think that the monks had a fantastic opportunity to be some of the most fun class in the game. I preferred them over the assassin, to be completely honest, of Diablo 2. Compared to the native architecture of the dry steppes, the Zakroom architecture is more distinct and refined. These structures are adorned with ornate detail and often accompanied by elaborate structure or statuary. Chaz will elaborate more on the interesting relics that can be found on the Zakroom estates. And this is Chaz's head. Many followers of the Zakroom come to pilgrimage in Orby Monastery. Caravans along the road reinforce this idea. Making these wagons explode is always a fun time. As you can see, It has fallen on hard times. Much of the storage and keepsakes of the Zagharim have been laid waste. Oh, that was disgusting. You can pick through the ruins of the abandoned monastery. Perhaps there are still treasures to find. As you venture outside the monastery into the geothermal region, many of its natural inhabitants to contend with. If you look closely, you will find their dwellings among the cliffs. And now we're going to look at Kiovashad. And this is Kiovashad Night. Okay, I have to admit that fire does look really good. Um, it again, though, it just gives me massive Diablo 3 vibes. Diablo 3 with the saturation turned really far down. That's honestly what I feel like I'm looking at here, which again is very disappointing. Like I understand that it's an isometric game like Diablo 1, 2, and 3 have been. But all they're showing us, to me, it seems like is Diablo 3 with a dark, low saturated coat of paint. And that's disappointing because we're not seeing any of the things that would feed us into wanting to play this game. Matt McDade. Our goal with Kiovashad is to really drive home the idea that this medieval settlement feels oppressive, frigid, and harsh. I did not get that at all. However, we still need to convey that this place is a place, or that this is a place of refuge, afforded to those who reside within its boundaries. Honestly, I get this much more from Act 5 in Diablo 2 than I got from the video we just saw. However, we still need to convey that this place is a refuge afforded to those who reside within its boundaries. This is a militaristic settlement, so it is important that we give it a heavily defended presence straight off the bat. We believe it appropriate to provide a gradual buildup of smaller defensive structures upon approach to the settlement. Doing this hints to you that something greater lies ahead. Upon reaching the gates, you are confronted with stone steps, or steep stone, perimeter walls, and a deep cavernous moat that ward off any unwelcoming visitors. Upon entering the town, you see the architecture typical throughout fractured peaks, making use of the wood from the many forests in the region. Structures here are clad with natural pine boards and birch shingles. As with most dwellings in Sanctuary, these buildings are very much functional over form. In this video, we can see a large portion of the southern end of Kiovashad, which contains the simplest of shelters, some clinging to the town's walls, overlooking the glacial flow beneath. When you happen upon this area, we want you to draw similarities with the slum-type encampments, where densely packed living quarters are in abundance. The Interactives teams have done a fantastic job of really driving home that narrative with the culture pass, or with their culture pass. Chaz Head. Kiovashad has many districts, with each one set dressed in unique culture kits. Here, we have the slums where the downtrodden seek shelter from the extreme elements. We support this idea by layering detail of frayed cloth and broken shelters and general unhappiness. Can you believe that this is an example of high-end living in Sanctuary? Yes, kind of, to be honest. Ben Hutching says, for this nighttime look at Kiovashad, we can see the use of fog, soft shadows, and bounce lighting to create softness in the lighting. The softness is a core part of Diablo 4's lighting aesthetic, provided by a natural and grounded frame. We aim to give Kiovashad a thick and lived-in atmosphere with warm and earthy tones, giving it a sense of reprieve from the fractured peak's coolered, frigid palette. Now we have a little section regarding the dungeons of Sanctuary written up by Ben Fletcher, or at least presented to us by Ben Fletcher and relayed to you by me. Dungeons are still that randomized content that you know and love from previous Diablo titles. However, we added new and exciting features that allow us to make even more dungeons across the world of Sanctuary than ever before. In order to support the over 150 dungeons, we've had to shift the way we make environment art so that it's flexible enough to be used in multiple locations and not just a single dungeon. We break it all down into what we call tile sets, which would be new to anyone that's not very familiar with these type of games. If you're a seasoned vet to any ARPG, you completely understand how the tile set system tends to work. We would like to share with you a handful of our tile sets and a few ways we can mix and match them with props, interactives, and lighting to create dungeons that are varied, handcrafted, and yet procedurally created. It takes a lot of hard work from many teams to create a dungeon, and we are proud to show you what we have been working on. So this looks like it's going to be one of the sample dungeons. Let's actually turn some sound on so you guys can hear this. That looks almost like a waypoint that's non-active. I'm guessing that was an armor stand, not skeletons. I want to hear the gold drop. I don't like that. I don't like that sound of the gold dropping. It could just be because I am very, very prone to fall into the idea of nostalgia, but I don't like the way that gold sounds when it drops. From Brian Fletcher, this tile set is an example of how we've, quote, returned to darkness. We want to take you deep underground to the darkest recesses of Sanctuary, where a mysterious and gross corruption has taken root. This ancient temple is a great place to push some primal horror vibes. Okay, the fixed camera is one of our best tools since it allows us to place assets in the foreground without blocking the playable space, because we always know where you are looking. We can dial in and customize the layouts, vistas, and foreground elements to make sure there's a good composition. I think it's because we don't always know where you're looking. The spider legs are placed in specific locations for the unnerving silhouettes twitching in the background. Our dungeon design counterparts give us some great layouts to play with, which allow us to push the depth of each scene. We want you to have the impression that a dungeon goes on forever, and you're only seeing a small part of the underground labyrinth, of a large, rather, underground labyrinth. I didn't see any spider legs. Oh, maybe. Okay, never mind. No, I see it. I see it. If you look up here, spider legs, spider legs. Okay. Okay, that's fair. Maybe they do always know where I'm looking. Whatever. From Chazhead. The props and interactives team seek to maintain the mystique and horror settings Brian described. Our hope for this culture kit is to make you feel uneasy whilst being rewarded for venturing forward. Nothing here should feel like it was crafted in Sanctuary by the people living on the surface. We were able to focus on different styles of shape language, monolithic and twisted. This is not a place where you would want to explore alone. Psh, you don't know me. He's right, though. This is from Ben Hutchings. Here, we can really see our embrace of Diablo's 4 core pillar of a return to darkness. Our aim is to subtly lead you through the dungeon while revealing fantastically grotesque forms. In dungeons like this, we will focus a lot on silhouetting the player's space and giving the scene a sense of scale and depth. This helps navigation and visibility, but also shows the vastness of the environment. Now let's take a look at the wretched caves. Oh, and then we even have, it looks like we still have quite a bit. So if you need to take a pause, go refill your cup, do what you got to do. I'm going to look at the wretched caves now. Got ourselves a little druid. As he is walking through the caves, kind of exploring as we do. I guess I could just leave the sound on since there's not going to be, or there shouldn't be ads on this web page. I have to admit, I do really, really love the ambiance music. Okay, so from Brian Fletcher. The world of Diablo 4 is incredibly large, utilizing numerous unique tile sets to cover all the various zones, biomes, and cultures. In order to create so much high-quality content, we found clever ways to reuse our tile sets and add enough variety to cover 150 plus dungeons. And while providing fresh experiences each time. One way we can do that is by dressing up tile sets with various themes. The next dungeon is a hidden druid resting site overrun with demons. As you travel through the dungeon, you'll see what it is covered. You'll see that it is covered with many druidic cultural items, such as talismans and charms. We place a lot of these items on a layer that can be turned on or off, depending on what the theme of the dungeon is. In one dungeon, it's a druid burial site. In another, it's an uninhabited dark cave. Adding these sorts of details is a great way to add a lot of visual interest as well as visual storytelling. These assets were made by several teams, so it's a great example of many groups coming together to contribute to a final environment. Chazhead says, we were able to expand on the druid culture kit in this dungeon. In many ways, the druid is an exciting return to the Diablo franchise. Fuck yes, it is. No less for props and interactives, expanding on this unique class by providing a full kit for its reclusive people. It would be easy to make the druid props fantastic, but we've stretched ourselves to come up with fun ways to keep the culture kit grounded while not turning the druids into something they're not. I hope when you play Diablo 4, you get a sense of their magic while not betraying the dark and gritty world the druids reside in. I really hope so, because the druids have always been my favorite class. It may be that I'm kind of a nature boy. I love the woods. I live in Oregon. I've lived in Oregon most of my life. And one of the things I always missed when I didn't live in Oregon was our forests. I love that I can go outside and there are woods everywhere. Next, we're going to look at the flooded depths. Again, we've got the source running around. It looks almost like a catacomb type area or like a giant housing place. It just looks like an endless hallway within buildings. I don't know how I feel about that. So, one of the things I really like about games is when they don't give you hints of where to go. They just kind of let you explore. And if you look, this doorway lights up telling you, hey, go this way. Maybe that's just me. God, I gotta admit, that fire looks so fucking good. It really does. That's new. Okay. Multiple layers. Upstairs, downstairs. I like that. I'm not gonna lie, as I'm looking through this, I'm getting massive Dark Alliance 2 vibes, which I'm not upset about. Um, if I'm able to look at the game, if I can get, how to best say this? If I can get the same feelings from this game, because I know it's not going to be the same as Diablo 2. It's not going to be able to reach Diablo 2 levels of familiarity, um, obsession, diversity as far as builds and uniqueness. It's not going to reach that. But if it can get close to what Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 was, or Champions of Norath, then I may be able to really thoroughly enjoy this game like I wasn't able to with Diablo 3. Diablo 3 was okay for a little bit, but the game got so boring so fast. And then adding on to the fact that it was so bright and so fantastical, it just wasn't something that I could thoroughly get into. Ignore the fact that I have it on PC, PS4, Xbox 360. Ignore all that with all the expansions and everything. I'm a bit of a Diablo obsessionist. The game's right there, the game disc that you can't really see because of the reflection. That's my old copies of Diablo 2, still in the black paper sleeve. So here we have a couple quotes and then one more video to watch, and then we'll head out. It looks like this video is going to be close to about an hour long. So there we go. A really long, thorough video for today, but I hope that you guys are enjoying it. Brian Fletcher. New dungeon features such as seamless floor transitions or traversals are exciting. But my favorite new feature is what we call tile set transition scenes. These are scenes that allow us to connect two different tile sets together in the same dungeon. Imagine running through a crypt only to find a hole in the wall. This seamlessly leads you deeper into a vast underground cave network. That does sound really cool. All while keeping the randomized layouts that change with each dungeon run. In this final video, we showed two tile sets joined together by a tile set transition scene. The first floor of this ruined keep remains dry and fairly intact. But as you journey deeper into the dungeon, you'll discover that the lower levels have decayed from the endless floodwaters pouring in. This swampy ruin is perfect for the drowned to move in and fortify themselves deep below. You'll have to fight your way through their defenses and climb across the rope to transition deeper into the flooded, ruined tile set. From Chaz Head, I love this dungeon. It was one of our first where we dialed in the style for props and interactives in Diablo 4. On the surface, we have that definitive Gothic medieval style fans love. Pikes, suits of armors, and iron chandeliers. I hope this set reminds you of what Diablo means to so many of us. Part of that visual is the sense of danger and exploration. As you dig deeper, things get gritty. As you descend, you will encounter obstacles seemingly out of place. The drowned have invaded this ancient manor and dragged their obscene valuables across the floors. This gives us the opportunity to mix kits, and I hope you agree the mold-encrusted assets are gross. Things should feel familiar, but tainted by the sodden hands of the drowned hordes. From Ben Hutchings, it's exciting to be able to merge two distinct visual styles. Here we see the dark, foreboding hallways of the keep leading down into the putrid aqua tones of the depths. In both, we can see the same approach to lighting these dungeons, with different executions. The keep has an oppressively dark, very selective lighting scheme, hinting at paths through the corridors subtly with soft lighting. By contrast, the flooded depths use putrid green and yellow tones to really give the dungeon a feel of a damp, heavy atmosphere. Last video we have is the quarterly update environment art, which is 2.5 minutes long. So let's go ahead and take a look. It looks like just a collection of different environment art assets. Swampy area looks really cool. A nice big building to hang out in, it looks like. Some cavernous ruins. Oh, the town's actually inhabited by people. That's really cool. I like that. That looks really cool. I really like the way that cathedral looks. Oh, snaps. Is there going to be a butcher coming? Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. That looks really good. Almost looks like a face. So it goes on to state that was a quick overview of how we approach the environment art of Diablo 4. We love creating the stage for all the action while still delivering subtle visual cues that make Diablo games so iconic. Lastly, it's not too often that we get to share and appreciate the incredible work of our teammates and progress of Diablo 4. We're glad you stopped by for a look, and we hope you're excited by what you see. Thank you for joining us, and keep an eye out for our upcoming blog update next quarter, the Diablo 4 team. And so, what I'm seeing, I'm disappointed in the fact that we're not seeing itemization, we're not seeing gearing, we're not seeing build, like how the builds are actually going, we're not seeing the characters. That's disappointing. As far as what we're seeing from the art and the stylistic side of the game, I am very excited. It does look really good. So don't take what I say when I criticize the fact that we're not getting any type of actual gameplay being shown to us, any of the things that would make a standard Diablo fan really, when I say standard, I mean not somebody that just plays through the game to get the story and then considers that the game's been beaten. I mean the Diablo player that plays, that plays through ladder, that invests time into the game, that plays the game for what the game is. Not necessarily the story, although that is a big important part of it. I'm going to be completely honest. I had no idea the lore or the story of Diablo 2 until like maybe 2 years ago. When they announced Diablo 2 Resurrected, that was when I was finally like, oh, maybe I should play through the game and get an idea of what the lore of this game is. Because it never mattered to me. And I don't think it mattered to a lot of Diablo 2's core fans. And that's really what I'm trying to get at, is that we need to see what makes Diablo such an obsession to so many people. We need to see how we're going to be able to play our characters, what kind of gear we're going to be chasing after, how the itemization and how the stats are going to be presented on the gear, because that's a huge part into whether we get the game to play through it one time and say, okay, that was cool, or whether we sit down and we play the game for days, weeks, months, years and years and years to go on. I'm hoping that I'm wrong when I say I don't think that this game is going to even come remotely close to Diablo 2. But as a completely honest assessment, I'm seeing this as Diablo 3.5. I'm seeing this as a game that's going to be much closer to Diablo 3 than to Diablo 2. And I really do hope that I'm wrong. Either way, when the game comes out in 3 or 4 years, I will be getting the game, I will be playing the game, and I will be checking it out. And I really, really sincerely hope that I'm wrong. But from everything that I've seen so far, I don't think I will be. Everything that I know about Blizzard and what they've kind of morphed into, I don't think I will be. Blizzard as a company used to be a game development company that prided themselves on providing us with games that were fun to play. And it's turned into a company, as I spit over everything, it's turned into a company that prides themselves on the narratives that they provide us with. And it seems like more and more that that's what gaming is turning into. It's turning into a interactive narrative. And that's not what people played Diablo for. Narrative is a part of it. Now, I'm not saying that narrative's not important. But narrative, art, storytelling, which is just another way of saying narrative, that's not the primary reason Diablo 2 is still heralded as the isometric ARPG that started and molded this genre that still Diablo 2 is king of. So with all that being said, I want to know what your opinions are of this. I want you to let me know down in the comment section below how you're feeling about how this is going, what you thought of what we saw so far, and what your hopes and fears and what you think we're going to get from Diablo 4. I know that this was a really long video, but it was a lot of content to cover. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you again tomorrow. Have a great evening, everyone.